You're watching this before November 2nd. Hear me clearly. This is not an accident. Heaven scheduled this moment for you. God is preparing to change the direction of your life. You have been chosen not for comfort, but for transformation. Everything you have been through, every disappointment, delay. It was not rejection, it was divine preparation. You are standing on the threshold of a new spiritual season, where what once broke you will now build you. But to step into it, you must learn the holy art of letting go. My beloved, too many people are trapped not by their enemies, but by their emotions. They are chained by the need to be understood, accepted, or approved. They carry wounds that have turned into walls, and they cannot move forward because they are still tied to what was. Listen to me. When your heart clings to what God has already released, you delay your own destiny. Detachment is not abandonment. It is obedience. It is saying, Father, not my will, but yours be done, even when it hurts. You see, the greatest freedom is not found in getting everything you want, but in losing the need to control it. The moment you stop fighting to hold things together, you begin to experience the peace that holds you together. This is what faith really looks like. Faith is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet trust. It is the smile that says, I know who holds my tomorrow, even when today feels uncertain. There will be times when God asks you to walk away, not because He wants to take something from you, but because He wants to make room for something greater. Some relationships, some positions, some seasons were never meant to stay forever. When you detach from what is temporary, you attach yourself to what is eternal. And when you no longer need to be understood, you become unstoppable. Spiritual detachment is not apathy, it is mastery. It is the strength to bless what leaves and the wisdom to wait for what comes. It is the calm in the storm that confuses your enemies because they cannot understand how you still stand when everything around you shakes. That's what happens when your identity is not in what you have, but in who you are in God. Many of you have been praying for change, but God cannot pour new oil into old containers. You must empty yourself of offense, resentment, and fear. You must let go of the desire to prove yourself, to be validated by others. When your heart is free from those attachments, God begins to move in supernatural ways. The door that was shut begins to open. The dream that seemed dead begins to breathe again. My friend, when you master detachment, you master peace. You begin to walk through chaos without absorbing it. You stop being a victim of circumstance and become an instrument of purpose. The world may misunderstand you, but heaven celebrates you, because now you live from revelation, not reaction. And so I say to you, release it. Release what drains your spirit. Release what no longer grows you. Release THNVRT to understand everything. Release the fear of being alone. When you detach from what is not meant for you, you make space for divine visitation. Everything changes when your confidence is not in your hands, but in God's. Everything changes when your heart says, Lord, I trust you even when I do not see. And everything changes when you stop chasing peace and instead become peace. So if you are hearing this before November 2, it means heaven has found you ready. This is your turning point. This is the hour to rise in spiritual authority. Detach from the noise of the world and attach, why? To burn ourselves to the whisper of God. He is calling you higher. Everything changes from this moment, not because your situation changed, but because you did. If you are watching this before November 2nd, then hear me carefully. This is not a coincidence. The Spirit of God has arranged this exact moment for you. Heaven has set this time as an appointment to awaken your soul. You are not here by chance, but by divine choice. God has selected you, not to make you comfortable, but to make you powerful. You have been called to walk through a transformation that will alter everything about how you see, how you're born, you feel, and how you live. What you are about to understand will change how you handle pain, how you respond to loss, and how you face the unknown. Because, my friend, there comes a time when you must learn to rise above what you cannot control. There comes a point in every believer's journey where GMROD teaches them that emotional detachment is not weakness, it is divine maturity. When God begins to elevate you, He first detaches you. He will begin to separate you from the noise, from the attachments that keep you bound to this world, from the expectations that others have placed upon you. You will feel the pull of heaven saying, let go. You may not understand why some people left, why certain doors closed, or why silence replaced what once was busy. But hear me, the detachment is not rejection, it is redirection. When you no longer cling to what was, you create space for what will be. Every time you release something from your hand, God places something eternal in your heart. Emotional and spiritual detachment is the mark of one who trusts God beyond sight. It is the quiet power that says, even if I lose everything, I still have everything because I have Him. That kind of peace cannot be explained, it can only be lived. When your identity no longer depends on what people think or how life unfolds, you have entered a new realm of spiritual authority. You no longer react to every storm, because you have learned that not every storm deserves your attention. The one who has liberal detachment can sleep through the waves because his anchor is not in the sea, but in the Word. Let me tell you a secret. The enemy cannot defeat a detached believer. He can attack your circumstances, but he cannot shake your peace. He can touch your possessions, but he cannot reach your purpose. But you have released everything into the hands of God. There is nothing left for fear to hold on to. That is why the most dangerous person in the spirit is the one who has surrendered all. They have no need to defend themselves, no need to impress, no need to explain. They simply trust. Do you want to know now what detachment truly is? It is faith in its purest form. It is believing that God is still working when nothing makes sense. It is worshiping through confusion, smiling through loss, walking forward when you don't know the way. Detachment says, even if I don't understand, I will still obey. IPRT is not coldness, it is confidence. It is not apathy, it is awareness that you are held by something greater than emotion. So many of us live as slaves to feeling. We move when we feel loved, we stop when we feel rejected, we worship when we feel inspired. But the spiritually mature do not live by fear or healing, they live by faith. The emotionally detached believer says, I am not ruled by how I feel today, because I am anchored in what I know about my God. That is the key to unstoppable peace. That is the power that turns pain into purpose. Every season of divine growth requires a separation. You sit and not rise while still clinging to the ground. You cannot end your next chapter while trying to edit the last one. The hand of God is gently pulling you out of the places where you once belonged, because He is preparing you for where you truly belong. And yes, it will hurt. Detachment always hurts before it heals. But after the pain passes, a peace will come that cannot be shaken. This is your season to let go of the need to be understood, to be approved, to be accepted by those who cannot see your calling. Let go of the fear that if you release something, you will lose everything. You let go, you will finally see that God has been holding you the entire time. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you care with wisdom, not attachment. It means you love freely, but you no longer suffer from the need to control outcomes. When you reach that place, the atmosphere around you changes. You stop chasing what you used to crave. You no longer beg for doors to open, because you know that what is meant for you cannot pass you by. You begin to move with divine rhythm. You understand that when God closes one chapter, He is already writing the next. And in that surrender and you find strength. In that silence, you find wisdom. In that letting go, you find yourself again, not as the world defines you, but as heaven designed you. So if you are listening to me now, before November 2nd, then this message is your confirmation. You are being prepared for divine elevation. The shaking you feel is not destruction, it is promotion. God is cutting away what you no longer need. You are stepping into a new level of peace, where your emotions no longer control you, and your confidence comes from the one who never changes. From this day forward, walk free, walk light, and walk relax, because everything changes when you finally let go. If you are hearing this before November 2nd, it means the Spirit of God has chosen you for a divine encounter. You have been handpicked to understand a mystery that few ever see, the mystery of letting go, the holy power of detachment. Life will never be the same after this revelation. Because once you learn to release, you will no longer chase. Once you stop clinging, you will begin to soar. There are moments when God calls you to stand still, not because He has stopped working, but because He is doing something you cannot yet comprehend. This is that moment. You are being invited to detach from the noise of emotion and attach yourself to the stillness of purpose. Everything around you may be changing, but you are about to learn how to remain unshaken. Many people think detachment means not caring, but that is not true. Detachment is caring with divine wisdom. It is loving without needing to possess, giving without demanding a return, serving without expecting recognition. It is walking in freedom while still walking in love. When you are truly detached, you no longer react to people's opinions, because your identity is no longer tied to their approval. You know who you are, and that knowing gives you power. When you can look at what once wounded you and feel peace instead of pain, that is when you know you have grown. Detachment is the victory of the spirit over the soul. It is when the voice of God becomes louder than the voice of fear. There will come times when God will test your attachment. He will ask you to release what you love, not because He wants to take it away, but because He wants to see if He can trust you with more. He will remove people, positions, and possessions, not to punish you, but to refine why they are you. When your heart can say, Lord, even if it leaves, you remain enough, then you have entered the realm of spiritual maturity. That is the place where true peace lives. The storms may rage, but you are unmoved, because your confidence is not in outcomes, but in the one who controls them. Do not mistake divine detachment for loneliness. Loneliness is emptiness, detachment is fullness. Loneliness says, I am alone. Detachment says, I am with God, and that is enough. When you stop needing constant validation, when you stop needing things to look a certain way, you become dangerous to the enemy, because now you cannot be manipulated by fear or controlled by pressure. You are free, truly free. And freedom is the birthplace of revelation. In freedom, God can finally speak clearly, because the clutter of your emotions no longer drowns out His voice. Think of how many times God had to subordinate parade His chosen ones before He used them. Abraham had to leave his father's house. Moses had to leave Pharaoh's palace. Even Jesus had to withdraw to the mountain to pray. Every elevation requires separation. But the separation is never to isolate you, it is to concentrate you. When you detach from what is distracting, you attach yourself to what is divine. And that is when power flows. The Spirit of God cannot fill a vessel that is already full of human noise. That is why he teaches detachment, not to rob you of emotion, but to restore your focus. Many of you have been carrying battles that do not belong to you. You are drained because you are trying to manage what only God can handle. You are heavy because you have made your emotions your master. But today, the Spirit says, release it. Let go of the fight to prove yourself. Let go of the anxiety of the unknown. Let go of the people who no longer walk in your direction. You are not responsible for everyone else's understanding of your journey. Your obedience is to God, not to the opinions of those who cannot see what He is doing in you. Detachment does not mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being ruled by your feelings. It means you let faith lead instead of fear. It means you can love deeply and still walk away when God says, it's time. It means you can cry and still trust that the tears are watering something new. Emotional and spiritual detachment is not the end of love, it is the purification of love. It is love with control, love without fear, love without demand. When you reach that point, your relationships change, your prayers change, your decisions change. You start living from purpose instead of pain. This is what the Spirit is teaching you before November 2nd. The world may change, but you do not have to be shaken by it. People may come and go, but your peace does not depend on who stays. Situations may rise and fall, but your confidence is anchored in eternity. You are being trained to be unshakable in a shaking world. You are learning that detachment is not separation from life, but separation from bondage. It is the maturity to love without losing yourself, to serve without burning out, to walk through loss without losing faith. And so I tell you this, whatever leaves your hand will never leave God's plan. If you can trust Him enough to release it, He will return it purified, multiplied, and glorified. You will not lose what was meant for you. You will only lose what was never yours. This is your divine invitation to rest. Stop fighting the current flow with His will. Let the Spirit lift you to a higher peace, a higher power, a higher purpose. Everything changes when you do. The moment you stop clinging, you start ascending. The moment you surrender, heaven starts to move. So lift your eyes, open your hands and whisper, Lord, I release it. Because this time your letting go is your breakthrough. If you are hearing this before November 2nd, I want you to listen with the ears of your spirit. This moment was designed by God, not by coincidence or timing, but by divine orchestration. Heaven has arranged this encounter to shift your understanding of what strength truly means. Many people think power is found in holding on, but real strength is revealed in the ability to release are not weak. When you detach, you are powerful. You are not losing when you let go. You are aligning with God's perfect will. Everything that is happening in your life right now, every delay, every silence, every loss is not punishment. It is preparation for transformation. You are being refined and not reduced. You are being shaped for something far greater than what you are trying to preserve. The Spirit of God is teaching you the secret of unshakable peace. The peace that does not depend on what happens outside of you, but flows from what is happening within you. Emotional and spiritual detachment is not about being distant or cold. It is about being deeply connected to God's presence in such a way that nothing external can steal your internal balance. It is choosing to remain still when everything around you screams for reaction. It is the posture of one who has learned to trust the unseen hand of God more than the visible chaos of circumstance. When you master detachment, you no longer live as a slave to outcomes. You stop saying, I will be at peace when this happens, or I will be happy when they return. You begin to understand that peace is not something you chase it, I am instant and as something you carry. Detachment gives you dominion over your emotions. It teaches you that you can be disappointed without being destroyed, you can care without being consumed, you can love without losing yourself. The moment you stop trying to control how things unfold is the moment God begins to unfold them perfectly. So many people are exhausted not because they are carrying too much, but because they are carrying what God never asked them to hold. They are holding grudges, fears, expectations, and old wounds that should have been surrendered long ago. The Spirit whispers, let go, but Tibor said, hey, keep tightening their grip because they fear what will happen if they release it. Yet the irony is that freedom begins where your control ends. Every miracle that has ever happened began with surrender. The Red Sea did not part because Moses tried harder, it parted. Because he stretched his hand above it and trusted. Abraham did not receive the promise because he clung to Isaac. It was when he placed Isaac on the altar that heaven intervened. When you detach from what you fear losing, you make room for what God wants to give. Some of you have been praying for breakthrough, but your breakthrough cannot come while your hands are full of yesterday. God cannot give you new oil while your vessel is still filled with old residue. Detachment is not about denying your emotions, it is about purifying them. It is the holy process of removing what is temporary so the eternal can take root. The pain you feel in letting go is the weight of your spirit growing wings. The discomfort is not death, it is birth. You are not being broken apart, you are being broken open. When you live detached, you no longer depend on people to keep you steady. You love them, but you are not defined by them. You bless them, but you are bound by them. Your peace is not tied to their presence or absence. It comes from knowing that everything that is meant for you will find you in God's time, and everything that leaves you was never yours to begin with. That revelation frees you from striving. You stop begging for doors, T-bar to open, because you know that no one can close what God ordains. You stop trying to convince people to stay, because you know that divine purpose needs no defense. The spiritually detached are the most confident people on earth, not because they have everything, but because they are no longer afraid of losing anything. They know that every loss is an invitation to greater intimacy with God. They walk in quiet strength. They respond with grace when others expect anger. They smile at storms because they know who controls the wind. That calmness is not weakness, it is mastery. It is what happens in your heart no longer dances to the rhythm of the world, but beats in time with eternity. You are being called into that mastery now. This is your season to rise above reaction, to stop explaining your obedience, to stop apologizing for peace. When people misunderstand, you bless them and keep move and tibar in. When life shifts suddenly, thank God and trust His direction. Detachment is not the absence of care. It is the presence of faith. It is when you care deeply but refuse to be destroyed by what you cannot change. So, if you are hearing this before November 2nd, know this. Heaven has chosen you to WTBRLK differently. You will not move by impulse, but by insight. You will not be driven by emotion, but by revelation. The very things that once stirred your anxiety will now strengthen your faith. The fears that used to hold you will fade in the light of divine confidence. You are entering a new spirit NDR and tool dimension where your peace is unbreakable and your focus unmovable. From this day forward, do not fight what is leaving, bless it and let it go. Do not cling to what is changing. Thank God for what is coming. For when you detach from the temporary, you attach yourself to eternity. And when you realign from eternity, everything in time begins to bow before you. Everything changes, not because the world becomes calmer, but because you have. If you are hearing this before November 2, it is a sign that heaven has scheduled this moment for you. You are not here by accident. You were led here by divine orchestration, because God wants to reveal something that will completely transform how you see your life, your struggles, and your purpose. This is not just another message. This is a divine encounter. The Spirit of God is calling you to rise above the noise, to detach from what weighs you down, and to walk in a freedom that only comes from trust. Everything in your life is shifting. You may not see it yet, but what feels like loss is preparation. What feels like silence is alignment. What feels like delay is development. You are being prepared to live from a higher place, the place of divine detachment. You see, emotional and spiritual detachment is not withdrawal, it is awakening. It is the moment you stop clinging to what is fading and begin to anchor yourself in what is eternal. It is when your heart learns to rest in the sovereignty of God, even when your mind cannot understand His ways. The world will tell you that peace comes from control, but the Spirit will show you that peace comes from surrender. You do not find peace by managing everything, you find peace by releasing everything into His hands. The deeper your trust, the lighter your soul. When you can say, God, even if I do not understand, I still trust you, you have reached the place where faith becomes unshakable. There is a divine paradox in detachment. The more you let go, the more you receive. The more you stop fighting, the more victory you experience. When you let go of the need to control outcomes, you allow God to orchestrate something far better than what you imagined. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what is not yours to carry. It means you hand over the burden, the timeline, the results, and even the pain to the one who knows how to transform it all into purpose. And when you do, you will see that the peace of God is not fragile, it is fierce. It protects you from emotional storms and lifts you above confusion. Many people think strength is in holding on, but true strength is in release. It takes more courage to trust God with your unknown than to try to control what is familiar. You may lose what was temporary, but you will gain what is eternal. You may release what is visible, but you will receive what is divine. There is a season in every believer's life when God will test your attachments. He will gently touch the things you love, not to take the barred end from you, but to prove that He is your greatest treasure. When you can say, God, you alone are enough, then you step into supernatural freedom. That is when fear loses its grip, because fear only lives where trust is absent. The detached believer does not live without emotion. They live beyond INDRTT. They still feel pain, but pain no longer defines them. They still experience storms, but storms no longer shape their faith. They have learned that peace is not the absence of trouble, but the presence of God within it. They no longer ask, why is this happening to me? But instead say, what is God forming in me? That shift changes everything. You stop seeing obstacles as punishment and start seeing them as preparation. You stop trying to escape the fire and start allowing it to refine you. Every tear becomes a seed. Every silence becomes instruction. Every loss becomes transformation. WNDR10. You walk in detachment. Your heart becomes light. Your mind becomes clear. And your spirit becomes powerful. You stop living as a prisoner of reactions and begin to move with divine rhythm. You no longer chase what is leaving, because you know that what is meant for you will always find you. You know anger, fear endings, because you know that every ending in God's will is only a beginning in disguise. The detached life is not empty. It is full of divine order. You begin to see beauty where others see chaos. You begin to hear purpose in the very places others hear pain. God is not calling you detach to make you distant. He is calling you to detach so He can draw you closer. The moment you let go of your obsession with outcomes, you will begin to sense His presence more deeply. Detachment is not loss, it is intimacy. It is the space where you stop wrestling and start resting. It is where the noise of the world fades and the whisper of heaven becomes clear. This is where revelation begins to flow. This is where wisdom is born. This is where confidence becomes quiet, but unstoppable. And if you are hearing this before November 2, then hear this with your whole heart. God has marked you for transformation. You are standing at the edge of a new spiritual dimension. The tears you have cried were not wasted. They were cleansing your spirit for clarity. The things that left your life were not rejection. They were divine subtraction so that multiplication could come. This is the moment to release control, release fear, release the need to understand everything. The moment you do, you will feel heaven breathe through your soul. Everything changes when you detach from the temporary and attach yourself to the eternal. Everything changes when you stop reacting and start resting. Every TBR thing changes when you realize that peace is not found in what happens to you, but in who lives within you. You were not chosen to live in confusion. You were chosen to live in clarity. You were not called to survive by emotion. You were called to rule by revelation. So now release it. Release what WNDBR says you down. Release what limits your peace. Release what distracts your purpose. For as you let go, heaven will take over. You will walk with new authority, new calmness, new wisdom, and a new anointing. Because everything changes not outside of you, but inside of you. My beloved, as you have learned these words, understand this truth deep in your spirit. The change God desires to bring in your life will not begin with what happens around you. It will begin with what happens within you. Everything you have faced, every tear, every loss, every silence has been a divine classroom teaching you to let go, to rise higher, and to trust deeper. Detachment is not the end of love. It is the purification of love. It is the moment when you stop depending on the world for peace and begin to live from the peace that only God gives. This is your season to walk in calm authority, no longer shaken, beaten, by emotion, no longer bound by the opinions of others. You are being called to a higher level of trust, where faith is not based on what you see, but on what you know. You are not losing control. You are placing it back into the hands of the one who never fails. And when you do, you will see that which you thought was breaking you was actually building you. So as you step forward from this moment, walk in stillness, walk in surrender, walk in divine confidence. Do not chase, do not cling, do not fear. What is meant for you will always be drawn to your peace, not your pressure. Let go and watch God move. You have not been forgotten, you have been chosen. And because you have trusted, because you have released, because you have surrendered, everything, yes, everything will now begin to change.